Well, good morning. Today is Wednesday, the 7th of January. Today we are in Matthew chapter 17, and we're going to look at verses 14 through 21 today. Remember, Jesus had just gone up to a high mountain with Peter, James, and John, and was transfigured before them. And they've made their way down the mountain from there. Verse 14 says, "And when they had come to the multitude, a man came to him, kneeling down to him and saying, 'Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is an epileptic and suffers severely. For he often falls into the fire or often into the water. So I brought him to your disciples, but they could not cure him.' Then Jesus answered and said, 'O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him here to me.' And Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour." Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, "Why could we not cast it out?" So Jesus said to them, "Because of your unbelief. So assuredly I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting." So this is a really interesting account. Jesus comes down and they come down and the multitude's waiting for him. They didn't all make the hike up to the top of the mountain. Whether or not Jesus told them to stay here or they just couldn't physically make the trip, we don't know. But he comes down and he is immediately confronted by a man whose child, his son, says he's an epileptic. Now I'd have to look into the Greek and all that stuff to determine what exactly that word is. But initially it doesn't say anything about a demon. But it says that he was an epileptic who often falls into the fire or often into the water. And then it says the disciples could not cure him. And then Jesus basically rebukes the multitude. "O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him here to me." Now, I'm curious as to why Jesus was so severe here. Perhaps it's because, this is toward the end of his ministry, right before he's betrayed and crucified. And he's been in that region many times, and on several accounts it said he healed them all. So perhaps he's thinking, well, what took you so long? If you really thought that I was the only one who could fix your problem, why have you waited so long to come to me? And that's kind of where I lean. I believe that's kind of the thinking here, is that because of their lack of faith, he continued to let this person continue to be in bondage because he never came to Jesus until now. And that's often the case with us even, isn't it? It's like we have a problem, we have something that's going on in our life, and we'll expend all kinds of energy and resources to try to cure it or take care of the problem, whatever it is. And then when that doesn't work, well, maybe we need to go to God. Maybe we need to pray. Maybe we need to, seek the Lord. And it's like God's the last resort. And it's sad. I've seen it. I've done it. And Jesus says to those people, "Oh, faithless and perverse generation." Then it's revealed that it's not a medical condition that by itself, it's invoked by a demon. It says he rebuked the demon and it came out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Okay. Now, does that mean that every illness, every type of epilepsy is caused by a demon? No, absolutely not. However, this one was. And so that's where we have to be careful and discerning. We can't presume that everything's a demon, nor can we just automatically presume that it's the individual's fault or somebody's fault. It very well could be a spiritual issue. That's the root of it. And that's one of the things that's really challenging sometimes when it comes to ministry, when it comes to the Christian life. Discerning what is at the root of the problem. Now, we know our greatest problem is sin and the effects of sin. But let me just use depression as an example. Depression is a terrible, debilitating thing that many people deal with. But getting to the root of the cause. Interesting, a year or so ago, I went to a conference with my wife on Christian counseling. And one of the workshops that I went to was 2 or 3 hours long, this one session. The first hour, at least, dealt with diagnosing sleep issues. And the point that the doctor was making is that many people who suffer from depression are sleep deprived. So how do you go about evaluating that? Well, do you snore? Do you need to be tested? Do you need to have a sleep test? Do you have sleep apnea? When our bodies are run down, it causes all kinds of problems, mentally, physically. And that's the second thing that we check out. You go to a doctor. Are you depressed because you're dealing with some kind of physical issue? Okay. Rule out those possibilities, and then if everything checks out there, then are we dealing with a chemical imbalance, or is there an unresolved issue in your life, a spiritual issue? Maybe you need to be asked for forgiveness for something you've done, something that's eating you up inside, whatever it is. But my point I'm trying to make is that determining the cause of a problem is not always easy, and it takes discernment. And here Jesus immediately diagnosed the problem. Father thought it was epilepsy. The disciples apparently thought it was epilepsy because they could not cure him. And Jesus rebuked the demon. Jesus went right to the root of the problem. And the child was healed that very hour. Now it's interesting. Verse 20, Jesus explains to the disciples why they could not cast it out. So now it's implied that maybe they did understand there was something, a demon or something, but I don't know. But here's what Jesus said. The reason you couldn't cast it out was because of unbelief. For surely I say to you, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, and you say to this mountain or that, move here or there, it will move and nothing will be impossible for you. Oh, if you just have a little bit of faith. The best illustration I've ever heard about faith was from my former pastor, Dr. David Bowler. Pastor Bowler was from Montgomery, Alabama, deep south. And he was brought up to upstate New York to teach for a week at the Word of Life Bible Institute. Now, I wasn't there that week, but when he came back to Chattanooga, where he was our pastor, he told the story that the week that he went was in the middle of snow camp. So it was freezing snow and everything in upstate New York. I mean, it's north of Albany, about 80 miles, so it's way up there, closer to Montreal than it is to New York City. And right there on the lake, it was frozen over, and there's lots of snow. And on sometime during the week, they had brought a snowplow out to clear some of the ice so that the students could go ice skating. And he said he hadn't ice skated in years, so he was invited to come down, and he strapped on the skates, and he said he just barely was just easing out on that ice. He was afraid. Is this gonna hold me? You know? And he's tiptoeing on the ice. He's got just a little bit of faith. About that time, that a pickup with a snowplow on it drove right out onto the ice and made the ice rink even bigger. And he said, that guy had a lot of faith. He had just a little bit of faith, but it's not how big your faith is that really matters. What really matters is what is the object of your faith. If you have just a little bit of faith to get on that ice, that's all it took. The other guy had big faith because he knew that ice would hold him up. So it's not the size of your faith that matters. It's the object of your faith that matters. If you have a large amount of faith, but it's misplaced, it doesn't do you any good. But if you have just a little bit of faith, and it's in Almighty God, it can move mountains. That's the point. Jesus said you got to have, whether they were putting their faith in the fact that they had cast out demons before, so they were putting their faith in their own abilities, or whatever it was, I'm not really sure. But then Jesus clarifies as well, and he says, this kind only comes out by prayer and fasting. So, is there power in prayer? Is there power in fasting and denying ourselves before God and saying, God, I need you. I'm dependent upon you. Absolutely. So, take this and apply it to your own life. How big is your faith? What is the object of your faith? That's the most important thing. What is the object of your faith? That's all I have for today. I hope you have a blessed day. We'll see you tomorrow.